They chased him away, insulted him, and shut their gates, not knowing the beggar they rejected owned everything they depended on. This is a powerful drama about wealth, pride, betrayal, and the hidden power of humanity. Watch till the end because the final revelation changes everything. Subscribe now for more stories that will leave you speechless. The rain fell softly on the city streets as the old beggar shuffled forward with a torn sack on his shoulder. His clothes were dirty, his beard unkempt, and his sandals barely held together. People avoided his eyes as though poverty were contagious. Some crossed the street when they saw him coming. Others muttered insults under their breath. None of them knew that beneath the grime was a man who once ruled boardrooms. His name, long forgotten by the crowd, carried power in silence. Tonight, he was invisible by choice. Years ago, he had been one of the youngest billionaires in the region. His companies fed thousands and employed entire communities. Praise followed him wherever he went, but sincerity rarely did. Smiles were wide when money was near. Loyalty seemed strong when gifts flowed freely. Yet doubt began to creep into his heart after a quiet betrayal. A single overheard conversation changed how he viewed everyone around him. Trust cracked like thin glass. That was when the test was born. He sold none of his assets and informed no one of his plan. Instead, he vanished from public view under the excuse of a long business retreat. Only a trusted lawyer knew he was still watching everything. The billionaire shed his tailored suits for rags. He traded luxury cars for aching feet. Mirrors became strangers as days passed. Hunger taught him lessons wealth never could. Pain sharpened his senses. This was no act for sympathy, but a search for truth. On his first night as a beggar, he slept near a closed supermarket. The cold bit into his bones like punishment. Laughter echoed from passing cars filled with comfortable people. No one offered him food or a blanket. A child pointed at him and asked questions before being dragged away. He stared at the stars and wondered how many nights he had ignored people like himself. Guilt weighed heavier than hunger. That night, he barely slept. Morning arrived without mercy. At sunrise, he walked toward a wealthy neighborhood he knew too well. Tall gates guarded homes he had helped build through investments. Security guards watched him closely with suspicion. He approached one house slowly, leaning on a stick. Before he could speak, a guard shouted at him to leave. The words were sharp and cruel. No questions were asked, no mercy shown. The gate slammed loudly in his face. The sound echoed in his chest. He moved from house to house, receiving the same treatment. Some residents insulted him openly from their balconies. Others called security as if he were a criminal. One woman threw water at him, telling him to wash his sins elsewhere. Another laughed and recorded him on her phone. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from disbelief. These were people he had donated millions to. Their faces were once familiar in charity galas. Now, they saw only dirt. By afternoon, hunger clawed at his stomach like an animal. He approached a small roadside restaurant near the estate. The smell of food almost broke his resolve. He politely asked for leftovers, keeping his voice calm. The owner looked him up and down with disgust. Customers stared as though he had ruined their appetite. The owner ordered him to leave immediately. A plate smashed near his feet as warning. Shame burned hotter than the sun. As he walked away, a young waitress slipped outside quietly. She handed him a small wrapped portion of food. Her eyes were kind, but afraid of being seen. He thanked her with trembling lips. She smiled and rushed back inside. That single act pierced his heart deeper than all the insults. Kindness, he realized, still existed in quiet corners. He ate slowly, savoring not the food, but the humanity, tears mixed with crumbs on his hands. That evening, he wandered into a busy market. Vendors shouted prices, while shoppers bargained loudly. He stood quietly, hoping someone might notice him. A fruit seller chased him away with a stick. Another accused him of trying to steal. Children mocked his walk and laughed openly. He felt smaller with every step. Wealth had once made him larger than life. Poverty now made him less than human. The contrast was unbearable. As night approached, he found shelter under an abandoned stall. Memories flooded his mind like unwanted guests. He remembered board meetings where he ignored pleas for fair wages. He recalled dismissing employees he never bothered to know. He remembered how applause once drowned out conscience. Regret wrapped around him tightly. Sleep came with difficulty and heavy dreams. Faces from his past stared at him accusingly. He woke before dawn, sweating. The next morning, news played from a nearby radio. His company's name was mentioned with praise. The announcer spoke of generosity and leadership. He laughed bitterly at the irony. The image they loved did not match the truth he now lived. He wondered how many praised him without knowing him. The test was already revealing painful answers. But he was not done yet. There was one place left to visit. The place that mattered most. He made his way toward his own mansion, now guarded heavily. The gates were taller than he remembered. Flowers bloomed where he once walked freely. His heart pounded as he approached. This was the home he shared with those closest to him. If kindness lived anywhere, it should live here. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. His hands shook uncontrollably. The guard spotted him immediately. Before he could speak, the guard pushed him back roughly. He explained he was hungry and needed help. The guard laughed loudly, calling others to look. Insults followed like arrows. Someone threatened to call the police. From the balcony above, familiar voices echoed. They told the guard to chase him away. No one came down to look closely. No one recognized him. The gate closed with finality. He stood there long after they had gone. His legs felt weak, unable to carry him away. This rejection cut deeper than all the rest. These were the people he trusted most. These were the ones who enjoyed his wealth daily. He realized his presence there was unwanted without his money. The truth settled painfully in his chest. Love had conditions he never noticed, and loyalty was rented, not earned. As he walked away, his vision blurred. Tears flowed freely now. He had found what he feared most. Wealth had surrounded him with actors, not allies. The test was working too well. Each step away from the mansion felt like a funeral march. Yet, a strange calm followed the pain. Knowledge, though cruel, was power. And power would soon return. This was only the beginning. The following days hardened him in ways he never expected. Hunger became familiar, almost comforting in its honesty. He stopped hoping for kindness and simply observed. People revealed themselves without masks when they thought no one important was watching. The city showed its true face to him. Cruelty was loud, kindness was quiet. The lessons were harsh but clear. He wrote names in his mind, both good and bad. Every action was being recorded in silence. One afternoon, he collapsed near a bank entrance from exhaustion. Security rushed toward him angrily. Before they could drag him away, a middle-aged man stepped forward. The man offered him water and asked if he was okay. Security hesitated, but allowed it. The stranger helped him sit and spoke gently. No cameras, no audience, just concern. The beggar thanked him sincerely. Another name was etched into memory. Later that day, he overheard two businessmen discussing his company. They complained about employee wages and laughed about exploiting contracts. He recognized their voices instantly. These men attended his private dinners. They praised him publicly and mocked him privately. Rage simmered beneath his calm exterior. He now understood how his silence enabled greed. Power had blinded him to consequences. But blindness had been cured. Accountability was coming. That night, he fell ill from exposure and hunger. Fever burned through his body. He lay on the cold ground, shaking uncontrollably. People passed by without stopping. Some glanced briefly before turning away. Just when darkness threatened to swallow him, someone knelt beside him. It was the same waitress from the restaurant. She had followed him after her shift. She wrapped him in a jacket and called for help. Humanity had returned again, quietly. He was taken to a small clinic run by volunteers. The staff treated him without asking for payment. They cleaned his wounds and gave him medicine. No one demanded his identity. No one judged his appearance. He slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Gratitude filled his heart completely. This place, built on compassion, shone brighter than any mansion. He decided then to change everything. When he recovered, he returned briefly to the streets. The test needed closure. He visited places that had rejected him before. This time, he felt no anger, only clarity. People behaved exactly as expected. Insults repeated, doors closed, laughter followed. He nodded quietly, accepting the final confirmations. The city had spoken clearly. He had heard enough. It was time to end the disguise. The transformation began quietly at dawn. He shaved his beard and cleaned his face. The rags were replaced with a simple but clean outfit. Confidence returned with posture, not clothes. He contacted his lawyer from a public phone. Instructions were given calmly and precisely. Documents were prepared, accounts accessed, meetings scheduled. The beggar disappeared completely. The billionaire was coming back. The city buzzed when news broke of his return. Media rushed to cover his unexpected appearance. Board members panicked quietly. Families rehearsed apologies. His mansion doors opened once again. He walked through them with a calm expression. Those inside froze in disbelief. Faces turned pale with realization. Recognition dawned painfully. The man they rejected stood before them whole. Silence swallowed the room. Meetings followed swiftly and mercilessly. Contracts were reviewed and cancelled. Corrupt partners were exposed publicly. Security guards who insulted him were dismissed. Donations were redirected to real compassion projects. The clinic that saved him received full funding. The waitress was offered education and opportunity. The man at the bank was invited into leadership. Rewards followed character, not connection. Justice moved with purpose. At a final press conference, he told his story. Cameras captured every word and pause. The city listened in stunned silence. He spoke of invisibility, cruelty, and truth. He named no one, yet everyone felt exposed. His voice carried no bitterness, only resolve. He ended with a warning and a promise. Wealth, he said, reveals who you are, and now he would reveal them. The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Some praised his wisdom, others felt attacked and ashamed. Social media exploded with debate. Streets buzzed with reflection. People looked differently at those they once ignored. Beggars were noticed more. Small kindnesses increased quietly. Change, though imperfect, had begun. One man's test had shifted a city's conscience. That night, alone in his study, he looked out over the city lights. The view felt different now. Power no longer thrilled him the same way. Responsibility weighed heavier, but felt right. He knew mistakes could never be undone, but intention could reshape the future. He picked up a pen and began planning reforms. This time, not from comfort, but from truth. The beggar's lessons would never be forgotten. The city did not sleep the night after his confession. Conversations echoed in homes, markets, and offices as people replayed his words. Many felt exposed without being named. Others felt inspired without being praised. The poor whispered hope to one another. The rich checked their consciences uneasily. For the first time, power had humbled itself publicly. The story of the beggar billionaire spread like wildfire, and no one could ignore it. At his mansion, former allies arrived one after another, seeking forgiveness. Some cried, some knelt, some offered excuses. He listened quietly, without anger or satisfaction. Apologies sounded hollow after truth had been revealed. He accepted none on the spot. Forgiveness, he said, required change, not words. Many left disappointed and afraid. A few stayed silent, reflecting deeply. Those were the ones he watched closely. He began visiting his companies without announcement. Employees froze when they saw him walking freely among them. He spoke to cleaners, guards, and junior staff first. Their stories were painful but honest. Executives waited nervously while he listened patiently below. Decisions were made swiftly and firmly. Salaries were reviewed, conditions improved, abuses punished. Fear slowly turned into respect. The system began to heal. The waitress's life changed quietly but completely. She was enrolled in school and given mentorship, not luxury. He told her kindness did not need reward to be valuable. Still, he insisted opportunity was deserved. She cried when she realized her small act mattered. Her story became a lesson he often shared privately. Not all heroes wear crowns, he said. Some wear aprons and fear consequences. She never stopped being kind. He returned one final time to the streets alone. This time, he wore simple clothes by choice. Beggars gathered around him, unaware of his identity. He listened to their stories with genuine attention. Food was shared. Laughter broke through pain. For once, he did not feel like an outsider. He felt human among humans. Before leaving, he arranged lasting support through hidden channels. Dignity, not charity, was his goal. At the clinic that saved him, he funded expansion without attaching his name. Doctors protested, wanting to honor him publicly. He refused with a gentle smile. He told them compassion loses power when it seeks applause. The clinic grew, helping thousands quietly. Volunteers increased as hope spread. Healing became the loudest testimony. This, he believed, was true wealth, and it required no recognition. Months passed, and the city changed slowly but visibly. People greeted beggars with more care. Children were taught empathy alongside ambition. Social conversations shifted toward responsibility. Not everyone changed, but many tried. He watched from a distance, guiding where needed. Power was now a tool, not an identity. Wealth was a responsibility, not armor, and humility had become his compass. One evening, standing on his balcony, he reflected on the test. Pain had taught him what comfort never could. Loss had shown him the value of presence. Disguise had revealed the truth of hearts. He knew the world would never be perfect, but awareness had been planted like a seed. Growth would take time. He was patient now. The beggar inside him would never leave. In a final interview, he was asked if he regretted the experiment. He paused longer than expected. Regret, he said, belonged to the man he used to be. Gratitude belonged to the man he became. He hoped others would not need to lose everything to learn empathy. The interviewer fell silent. Millions watching felt something shift inside. A lesson had been delivered without force. Truth had spoken softly but firmly. That night, he turned off the lights and rested peacefully. No guards followed his thoughts. No fear chased his sleep. He had faced the world without protection and survived. More than that, he had understood it. The disguise had ended, but the lesson remained. Power had bowed to humanity, and humanity, at last, had answered back.